noticed that most of these universities have their own printing presses. So Harvard has Harvard University Press, you have Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press. And so they can come up with their own ideas in ivory towers and then self-publish them and then train the journalists to spin the narrative that they want. So basically, they have a monopoly of the complete end-to-end knowledge production process. And then to top it all, they can cancel all dissenting voices. Now, that presumably, if they came to India, that's a danger, isn't it? I mean, I think we'd all be stuffed if that happened, because then how does one present an alternative point of view?
Yeah, we have seen Harvard produce a toxic cloud of social sciences verbiage and literature, which is normally self-referential. You know, the people in that cloud, they refer to their own work and nothing else, on the subject of India and Hindus. You know, they have a huge industry which is devoted towards telling Hindus and Indians about Hindus and Indians. And that should actually be, I think that should be banned in its entirety. And if I just pick on a principle, you know, in the United States, they've given respect to the notion that a person can choose their own pronouns, that an individual has the right to say, you have no right to call me by a pronoun which I object to and which causes me offense. I would say Bharat has the same right to say to Harvard, you have no right to publish a single word which causes me harm or causes me offense, which I disagree with and disapprove of. If that's there, then all of a sudden many of our concerns disappear. But if Harvard is going to, the mothership is going to establish a little outpost, shall we say, in India, and then from India start to spew forth the same toxic social sciences pollution, which is going to try and tell Indians about their deficiencies and their defects and try and undermine the society itself, it should be banned. They should be expelled without a second thought. So you're right. This ownership of the whole of the supply chain, from cranium to copyright, that should be actually controlled by Indians, by Bharat, by the Ministry of Education. They should not be given carte blanche, not by any means.
True. And now, to be fair, if you think about it, there'll be those that will say that, you know, the West has made such advances in science, engineering, technology, space, medicines, that we as a country, we need access to that kind of knowledge so that we can keep up. And you could make an argument for having some of the scientific disciplines brought into India because they actually add value. But do we really need Western humanities and Western ideas of social justice, which might map really well on that culture because of its particular history of colonialism and slavery? But how would it map onto a fundamentally different societal structure that we have in India? I mean, it feels like it's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Can that ever work?
You know, we have a totally different civilizational ethos. And on the basis of that civilizational ethos, I don't actually value to any great degree even the technological advancements that have accrued. You know, technology is a tool and it can serve humanity or it can destroy humanity. So having a huge and vast technological capacity means nothing, absolutely nothing whatsoever. And we saw this in, if I give you a graphic and stark example, there was no need for the Americans to drop atomic bombs on the Japanese and to kill so many innocent human beings. The war had already been lost by the Japanese, and yet it was done, and records prove this, to demonstrate power. You know, this was an act of egotistical arrogance to try and project, in the same way that a bully would project, power across humanity. Where was the educated wisdom, the deep understanding of the human condition, the compassionate heart, when that decision was made? In Bharat, we have had mastery of a different form of technology, which they haven't even scratched the surface of, and they're desperate to. They would love to, and that's the technology of the human being. What is a human being? We have explored it to such a degree. We have the five koshas, we have the understanding of the continent of the human mind and how to transcend it. We have the understanding of the universe of consciousness and how to navigate it and how to attain it. These are areas of expertise and understanding which have forever given positive contributions to society. This is what has helped us to sustain 5,000 years of continuous civilization in the land without consuming the land and without destroying ourselves. That is a gift that we have to humanity. I would not exchange that for the little technical gadgetry and gizmos which have not helped American society to attain peace, tranquility, harmony, love, affection, all of the most valuable things about humanity. One is diamonds and the other is sackcloth. It's chalk and cheese. So I don't think we should be impressed by either. Really, it's the contribution, it's the conclusion. And the other most beautiful thing is that our sages, our rishis, our people who we look up to as being the repositories and the givers of wisdom, they understood that this earth is actually an incredibly good place, that to be a human being is a good thing. And they understood that that goodness could be maintained by not tinkering with it. And so their activity, their disturbance of the natural rhythm of life and of seasons and of growth and of plants, you will notice that the wisest people tinkered and tampered with nature the least. And that is a higher level of wisdom and understanding than the wisdom that says you can build a hadron collider underneath a mountain range and let's destroy some atoms and some protons and see what happens. It's a different mindset altogether. We have much more to give. We have a lot less to receive. And if Bharat approached them from that perspective, I think it would be good for Harvard and it would be good for Bharat. We would get a little bit of an exposure to the gadgetry and gizmos that they've created, and they will get a huge amount of wisdom on how to use those gizmos or not use those gizmos without destroying and wreaking havoc.
It's funny, you mentioned wisdom, so I thought I'd share something that I just found out, and I thought it was hilarious. Cornell, which is one of the Ivy Leagues, just spent $1 million on a project trying to work out which part of the body would hurt the most if stung by a bee.
Wow.
And then there was an instance of Harvard where they spent $75,000 of taxpayer money, so not the $53 billion endowment that you mentioned. They actually got a government grant to blow lizards off trees so they could work out how lizards would fare in case there was a hurricane. And then you have India, which has slightly more pressing issues of having to feed 1.4 billion people.
Nivitaji, it must be realized and recognized that the colonialists came to Bharat not for Bharat's interests. They came to take. And Harvard is not coming to Bharat for Bharat's interests. It's coming to take. I've had meetings recently in Bharat, in India, with venture capitalists, with so many people who are looking at India, and I see them looking with the same eyes that the East India Company looked at. I could almost hear the same conversation occurring. Oh, we want to invest in India. Give us trading rights. We're going to bring prosperity. We're going to bring advanced weaponry. We're going to bring technical gadgets and so on and so forth. And yet the impact of it was wholly destructive. And it's exactly the same. And, the lack of wisdom is apparent in both of the examples that you've given. I can almost hear one of my village elders in the village in Punjab where I spent my early years. If you'd asked them the question, where does a person get hurt when a bee stings them? They would have given you a clip round the ear and said, now tell me, where is it hurting? And now can I have 75,000 or whatever the grant was? It's a nonsensical pursuit. It doesn't add to human existence and human harmony. There is another dimension, and that is that if you break something and then you find a way of fixing it, that's not pushing the boundaries of humanity further forward. The notion that the environment has been destroyed to such a degree and degraded to such a degree by colonialist ravagers, and then trying to get grants and get funding so that you can undo that harm. This is not the action of a civilization built on wisdom. Wisdom says, don't destroy what you can't break, what you can't repair. Don't break what you can't repair. Study it, learn how to move with it, learn how to fit in with it. That's what dharma is, being in harmony with everything in creation. And so there is so much more that we have to give to them. And I do not for a moment believe that their intentions are benign, their intentions are friendly and holistic. We have to see the evidence of that before we accept it. Otherwise, I can see some of the most valuable resource of Bharat, which is the young civilization, the youngest generation in our civilization, that youth class with the brain power. I'm sure a colonialist would look at it in the same way as they would look at a gold deposit, the same way they would look at a thorium mine. They would look at this as a brain resource and be working exactly along the same principles and say, how can we avail ourselves of that valuable resource? At this moment in time, it may sound like a harsh judgment, but I think that fits. That's a garment that fits the measurements that we've been given. And let's see them respond to it, and perhaps we will look back and think we were completely wrong in that judgment. We have too much recent history to look at in terms of how these things happen. We have a look at Francis Xavier, who came and brought the Inquisition to Goa, a person who came supposedly wanting to teach and spread a message, and yet burnt Brahmins in cages alive. We have similar examples. And that same Francis Xavier, his name is revered. We have St. Xavier schools up and down the country. This is the depth to which interference and academic manipulation can go. It's destructive of society. It's destructive of civilization. We have so many issues where, and examples in recent history, what have these technocrats achieved? Auschwitz, the gas chambers, it was Americans who created the Xylon gas. The rails that went to Auschwitz, the trains that took them there, that metal was provided by American metal fabricators. Technology. But where's the compassion? Where's the humanity? Where's the dharma? It's totally absent. And we have to give that. But we can only give it to them if we maintain a strong capacity to be able to fight as equals in this space. The last thing that I sort of just want to remind everybody about is there were 41 universities who supported Rutgers in their dismantling global Hindutva project that Rutgers and Audrey Truschke had. I would say, if I was in the shoes of the Indian ministry, I would say that's 41 universities straight away who disqualified themselves. This was the conference at which people said, well, let's dismantle Hinduism. Imagine the horror if somebody in an academic institution were to say, well, the solution to the world's ills is let's dismantle Islam or let's dismantle Christianity. It's offensive on a scale which is hard to comprehend. And yet 41 American universities supported it. Perhaps they should be denied access to the country in its entirety.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.